8 reasons Columbus was a horrible man. 1. He mutilated natives to instill fear. His men would publicly cut off people's ears. This was done to shock others into submission. In one instance, a man's ears were cut off in the middle of his village. The reason was bizarre. The locals hadn't been helpful enough when the Spanish were crossing a stream. 2. His greed knew no bounds. He forced every native over 14 to provide a large amount of gold. Those who failed faced death. Areas without gold could pay in cotton instead. People who met the quota wore a copper token. This became a symbol of shame among the natives. 3. He kidnapped thousands. Columbus wasn't content with just conquering land. He also took people on Hispaniola. He ordered the capture of 1,500 locals. 500 were sent to Spain as slaves. 200 died during the journey across the Atlantic. Their bodies were tossed overboard. 4. He was cruel, even to his own men. Columbus's tyranny extended to the Spanish settlers. He ordered public whippings for minor infractions. One man had his tongue cut out for criticizing Columbus. A woman was stripped and paraded on a donkey for falsely claiming pregnancy. He even nailed a cabin boy's hand in public for catching a fish. 5. He allowed his crew to exploit native women. One of his men, Miquela de Cuneo, bragged about taking advantage of a Carib woman. He described the attack in graphic detail. Columbus had given the woman to him as a gift. Columbus noted that girls as young as 9 or 10 were in demand. He seemed unbothered by this horrific trade. Instead, he commented on a good price paid for girls of all ages. 6. He decimated the native population of Hispaniola. When Columbus arrived, Hispaniola had about 300,000 inhabitants. By 1496, just 4 years later, 100,000 had died. The population continued to plummet. By 1548, only 500 natives remained. 7. His actions led to natives taking their own lives en masse. The brutality of Columbus's rule was too much for many natives. Approximately 50,000 indigenous people took their own lives. They jumped from cliffs, poisoned themselves, or starved to death. They chose death over living. Under Spanish rule, entire communities destroyed their food supplies to avoid feeding the invaders. 8. His men beheaded slaves for convenience. The cruelty of Columbus's men knew no bounds. When transporting chained native slaves, they sometimes beheaded them. This was done when they didn't want to stop to untie the chains. Multiple historical sources confirm this gruesome practice.